In academically related domain, every researcher, these senior researchers, has a peculiar characteristics specifically on academic growth and development. If you manage to meet with at least 7 or 10 to 20 of these senior researchers and pose a question to them specifically on which section or chapters of the entire research process was so challenging to you, most, to about 80%, if not 100%, they will respond on the so-called the research methodology, part of the research. Because this section is so challenging, so complicated, so interactive, and it is the section that demands a researcher to do and demonstrate a practical scenarios in the field. Chapter 3, which is the research methodology, is the chapter that puts a researcher into a practical. And it should be designed in such a way it provides some easier way for a researcher to perform the activities of data collection in the field and later on come for data analysis. Proper designing, planning for a research methodology, it then will act as a gear toward your achievement in the entire process of the research. Therefore, one of the challenges that I faced as myself those days before I had some experience as I am today was on the sections and components that are within the chapter 3, the research methodology. It was so confusing, so complicated, felt challenging to me as which component should be placed at what condition and at what area and for what particular reason. I was simply informed that the research methodology had the point of the study sites. You need to explain about the research design, where you should show the research approach, whether the qualitative approach, quantitative approach, experimental design, non-experimental design, documentation, survey design, and all other things. And I was informed it is within the research methodology where you are going to show the research, the data collection methods. And it's within the research methodology where you're going to tell about issues related to data analysis. And it's within the same research methodology you are going to describe about the validity and reliabilities of your methods that you are going for data correction. So the most question that was within my mind is, how could I arrange all these components in a sequential and appropriate style such that it portrays a certain message to a reader? Which component should come first and which component should come later in a report? So that was so terrible story to me until when I went through different literatures. I attended several workshops, several seminars, and I made some interactions with seniors asking to a specific questions as why do we do this, for what reason, and what is this, what is within, what does this comprise. So those scenarios and ideology brought me into a practical state viewpoint where I can now do it in a theoretical perspectives and I can practically manipulate it, the information, into a practical scenario. So I found, it's my hypothesis, that probably you are also facing the same challenge. So it's within my YouTube where I'll be describing these things in a practical scenario. So I'm having a notebook. Then let me take my notebook, then I will take you through this concept as what are the components within the research methodology, and what in each component, what are the sub parameters or subcomponents should be also included, so that we share the knowledge. Knowledge is power. That is my brief. Let me share with you, having my notebook here. Do we know exactly what are the main components to be included in a research methodology? Or we still have the misconception that a research methodology is equal to research methods, or the research tools or instruments that are used for data correction. I remember the last sessions, I tried to give a highlight on the difference that exists between the research methodology and the research method. I did it purposefully with the assumption that while trying to go through the concept of the research methodology, we won't be confusing between the two terms as research method and the research methodology. Although I know most of the times when we speak of the research methodology, what comes in our brain is the so-called the research methods. Though under the research methodology, it comprises of several components. That's why we say, mainly when we speak about the research methods, it looks so simple and easier than what it is in fact is in a practical situation. So in so doing, I found it's necessary for us to discuss and find out the important components that are within the research methodology. Research methodology is broader practical sections of the researcher. It is the place where a researcher is going, in fact, to be exposed into a real situation. Most of the components within the research methodology are practical part of the researcher. That's why I said this is the most complicated and most challenging sections, because it's the one that is exposing a researcher into the field, going to demonstrate whatever he was trying to lead in the theory into now a practical in the process of data acquisition. It is the section, as I said, that exposes the researcher into a reality of what is going to do in the field. So if you have a poor designing of the component under this research methodology, automatically you are going to end up in a wrong direction. To me, I do call this a research methodology as an engine of the research, or it is a heart of the research, such that if a car misses the engine, a car won't move anymore. And if a human being loses heart, there is no pumping of blood. If there is no pumping of blood, what do you expect? If not death. So if there is a misunderstanding, poor information pertaining to what a research methodology is and what are the components within these issues, will bring us into a wrong direction as well. So I'll take you to the main component of the research methodology, that what are the things a researcher, a young researcher, a junior researcher is expected to find out when he speaks about the research methodology. Generally, when we talk of the research methodology, has several components that this should be in a research methodology. These are some of the common ones, where, depending on the nature of the study, there are some studies, particularly these social-related studies, psychological-related studies, educational-related studies, where they should have a certain philosophical point of view, where they believe to loot their plants. So under the so-called the research methodology, they start with a philosophical worldview of the paradigms of the study, trying to demonstrate and explain as the reason behind the selectivity of the conceptual and the theoretical frameworks, and why he has decided to carry out that particular design, for what particular reason, under whom, to whom they brief. That's the general overview. And under this research methodology, we expect to see the study sites, where a researcher is going to explain about the study sites, the locations, the demography. I will explain each of these components in a detail as time goes. That's why I said under this component I will go stepwise, because I know how it is confusing, how it is challenging, and how could bring some miscommunication if I take it in a general overview. So I'll be taking it one parameter and the other in a sequential with some typical examples. So it's within the research methodology where a researcher is expected to show the so-called the research design. I'll tell you what are within the research design. It is within the research methodology where a researcher is going to describe the data collection methods or the data collection instrument or tools. What is the specific tools that will be used for data collection? It is within the research component where a researcher is expected to show the data analysis. It is within the research methodology where a researcher should show the validity and the reliability of the tools that he has used or will use in the process of data correction. How do you think your data or the information that you are going to deliver will be varied, and to what extent shall be reliable? Are the methods that you have selected for data, are they reliable and varied? Are the approach that you have selected under your research design, whether the quantitative or qualitative, experimental, non-experimental, the sampling style, the population, the sample size, what could they bring about to the concept of validity and reliability? It is within this particular section where a researcher is going to show some ethical consideration, some delimitations or the scope of his study, and other more. This number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, and number 6 are so common to most of the disciplines. Some discipline like engineering, they may have their own style because their study also could differ from the other social and natural science related studies. Engineering, they have different protocols of which they have their own designs and other ways on how they can make their preparation and other. So they might be with different scenarios of which I'm not going to discuss here. I'm just discussing about the other related studies. So I will take you to a little bit about this. For instance, when we speak of this with the philosophical worldview, where a researcher is going to show his school of thought, the standpoint, the philosophical point of view for a particular selectivity of a particular study design. Under the study sites, the researcher is going to tell us the location of that particular area with the latitude, longitude, or any other forms from which they will display the location of the study. He will speak about the demography, the population of that particular area, ecological characteristics of that particular study sites, edaphic characteristics, referring to the soil and other geomorphological characteristics, Socio-economic activities, expect to see what are the tribes, the social activities, what are the economic related activities into that particular area. What could be the climatic condition on that particular state? That will fall under the study sites. The detail of this, they will fall next on. Why? In a practical, how do we write the location? How do we write the demography? What the series, what are the sections, subsections? How do we make this subheading and the headings of all this? Then we go to the so-called the research designs. Under the research designs, this is the place where a researcher is going to explain about the research approach, where he'll be, whether he'll be doing the qualitative or quantitative or carrying out the mixed research design. He will tell us whether he's doing under quantitative or qualitative design. If sometimes might be under experimental research designs or non-experimental research designs. It could be documentation study design, which is under qualitatives. It could be survey, it could be ethnographs, and other more. We will describe in detail when we go into the research design and its categories, the qualitative. So my intention is to tell that under research design, we expect to see there is a research approach. With the research design, we have the sampling design, where under which a researcher should display the populations, about what could be the populations where a researcher is going to conduct his work. What could be the sampling frame? What could be the sampling unit or the unit of analysis? What could be the sample size? What could be the sampling protocol? Is she going to do a so-called probability sampling or non-probability sampling? If it's probability sampling, for example, what techniques under probability sampling the researcher is going to collect his sample? Will it be using systematic sampling, simple random sampling, cluster sampling, or what categories under probability sampling? If you go for the non-probability, what particular techniques, snowballs, purposive sampling, and more other. I'll describe each of these parameters as time goes in a detailed way. Also, we had the section of the data collection method or instrument or tools for data collection. Under these particular sections is the point where a researcher is going to tell the exact methods that is going to be used for the data collection. Is he going to use the questionnaire, panel group discussion, focus group discussion, historical trend analysis, experimentations, field-based experiments, quasi-experiments, and other more methods that will fall under qualitative data collection method or quantitative data collection methods, the detail of which will fall. Then, under the same research methodology, we'll have the sections of the data analysis, where a researcher should tell what analysis technique shall be employed in the process of data analysis, interpretation, and then followed by report writings. So under data analysis, depending on the nature and the variety of data, we have several ways on how data we can analyze. We can simply analyze by the use of Microsoft Excel. We can also use some statistical softwares, the SPSS, which is so common to social related. We have the SAS. We have the R software, which is more common and I prefer to use it, though it has some statistical commands and some computer-based commands, but it's very easy and very useful. Sometimes under my YouTube, I will have a special class where I will try to demonstrate on how we can install, how we can use it to figure out and draw and make analysis of samples. Under the same scenario, we have the so-called validity and the reliability, as I said, and also we have the other component. Therefore, under the so-called research methodology, you have these main components. Each has different ways on how we can report it and how we can write it. And I promised that I will be taking one after the other to the next theories, such that we have the same understanding. So I found it necessary to provide to you this component before we go into a detail of one after the other. So I will start with how we can formulate and write a study site, research design and its categories, data analysis and its category, data correction, method and instruments, validity and reliability. What are these? What does it mean? How do we write it in a paper rather than how do we write it? We read in theoretical areas, any more. And therefore, with this simple remark, I would like to say welcome for the next series of my presentation, and try to support my knowledge sharing to the large population by typing research techniques by Malunguja. I am from Mbeya University of Science and Technology, which is located on the southern part of Tanzania, and currently I am doing my PhD in Tespa Central University, which is located on the northeast of India. And this is my email, which you can, if you have some queries, some comments, some more needful clarification, you can make a call at me. I would like once again appreciate your support, appreciate your listening. I ask you to subscribe, share, and make some comments for my knowledge sharing ideology, and that could be a good perspective, a good motive for knowledge sharing. There's nothing else we can do rather than sharing of the knowledge, whatever we have. Thank you for your attention once again. I say thank you.